Wilbert's Frozen Foes. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. All the stations were decked out in their decorations, and all the engines couldn't wait for Christmas Day to arrive. But on December 11th, there was a problem. Thomas was feeling ill. Workmen tried to make him feel better, but it was no good. "You need to go to the works, Thomas," said Sir Topham Hatt. Thomas looked down at his buffers sadly. "Will I be back in time for Christmas, sir?" he asked. "I don't know, but I'll be keeping my fingers crossed." Rosie arrived to take Thomas to the works. "I hope you get better soon, Thomas," she said. "Otherwise, it will be a blue Christmas." "Thank you, Rosie," Thomas smiled weakly. "I am hoping to be able to recover soon, as I do not want to miss out on the fun." Rosie buffered up to Thomas and took him to the works. Sir Topham Hatt sat in his office, thinking who should run Thomas's branch line while he was away. Then he had an idea. "I wonder, he hasn't been on the island of Sodor for years, so maybe—" "Yes, he'll be perfect! If he's available, of course." Next day, Percy was on his way back to Tidmouth Sheds after taking some chicken feed to Farmer McColl's. But as he got back to Tidmouth Sheds, he got a big surprise. "So, how long has it been? 15 years? 20 years? More than that?" "Why, I never!" Percy gasped. "Wilbert! It's been a long time." "It's been far too long, Percy," said Wilbert. "But I'm glad we finally had the chance to reconnect. How have you been? Have you had any porridge lately?" Percy chuckled. It wasn't long before the other engines returned to Tidmouth Sheds. They were all pleased to see Wilbert. Wilbert had a reputation for being friendly and always willing to lend a helping buffer when needed. Additionally, he often shared fascinating stories from his travels, which the other engines greatly enjoyed hearing. While he was on Sodor, he made a bunch of new friends, such as Rosie and Neville. On one evening, Wilbert was telling Rosie another story from his railway. "Amazing!" exclaimed Rosie. "I hope that someday I can come to your railway and see all your friends." "You'll definitely get along with Roxy," smiled Wilbert. Just then, Oliver steamed in, looking righteously cross. "The Christmas season is better off without snow." "But isn't snow what makes the Christmas season so magical?" asked Rosie. "Magic or not," Oliver grumbled, "I'd trade the snow for clear rails any day." "And we had to deal with some naughty teenagers, Miss Rosie," added Toad. "Toad's right," said Oliver. "There we were, passing a field, when a group of teenagers started to throw snowballs at us. A couple of snowballs hit my face, a few hit Toad, and a few hit the guard. I hurried off as fast as I could." "How awful!" gasped Rosie. "Why would anyone be so horrid during the Christmas season?" "Some people just like causing trouble, no matter the time of year," replied Wilbert. "It's unfortunate, but not everyone shares the same holiday spirit." There are too many bad apples in this generation, Oliver said sadly. Be on your guard, you two, warned Toad. Otherwise, you might be next. Thanks for the warning. We'll keep a good lookout for those horrid teens, said Wilbert. Wilbert was puffing down the line, keeping a sharp eye out for any trouble. As he was passing a field, he didn't see the horrid teens. Just some children building several snowmen. Hello, Wilbert! They cheered. Wilbert smiled and continued on his way. Never change, children, he said to himself. That night, Wilbert was telling Gordon, Henry and James what Oliver told him. Outrageous! Gordon said crossly. We are engines of dignity and should be respected by all. Exactly, agreed James. It's simply unacceptable for anyone to treat us with such disregard. Perhaps we can organise a meeting with Sir Topham Hatt to discuss this matter further, suggested Henry. First thing tomorrow, said Wilbert, I will tell Sir Topham Hatt what happened earlier and... Wilbert! Just then, Rosie rushed in, looking very miserable. The horrid teens struck again, she cried. I was their next target. A snowball nearly hit me in the eye. The engines gasped. And, continued Rosie, my driver got hit too. And when we stopped at Crovan's gate, he said that he was... bleeding. Bleeding? Repeated James. This is unacceptable, Henry said crossly. We cannot allow our railway to become a battlefield for their mischief. We cannot stand by while they endanger us and our crews, huffed Gordon. The engines were visibly agitated, their voices echoing with concern as they discussed the day's events. Wilbert quietly pondered the situation, hoping for a swift resolution to restore peace on Sodor. The next day, everyone was on edge. The engine's agitation was palpable, and their voices carried a sense of urgency. Wilbert, however, remained calm, his thoughts focused on finding a solution. Wilbert was at Farquhar Station with Annie and Clarabelle. The guard blew his whistle, and Wilbert puffed bravely on. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine, he said. I hope you are right. I hope you are right, Annie and Clarabelle said worriedly. As Wilbert was puffing down the line, he looked to his left and then to his right. Everything was silent and peaceful. That's how it should be, Wilbert smiled to himself. Now! Said a loud voice. Wilbert gasped. There, waiting for him, were the horrid teens. Immediately, they started throwing snowballs at Wilbert, his crew, Annie and Clarabelle. Oh! Cut it out! Shouted Wilbert. Keep going, lads! Laughed one of the teens. Then, it happened. Ow! My window! Shrieked Clarabelle. The teens ran as fast as they could, while Wilbert came to a sudden stop. The guard inspected the damage. Take a look at this, he said. In the palm of the guard's hand was a rock. Wilbert's eyes widened. Those teens had been throwing snowballs with rocks inside them. It was lucky that the passengers weren't hurt, but they were furious. So was Wilbert. Injuring Rosie's driver, shattering Clarabelle's window, and scaring the life out of my passengers. That really does it. Soon, Gordon, Henry, James, and Percy heard the news. "Disgraceful!" said Gordon. "Disgusting!" put in James. "Despicable!" finished Henry. "Is there no end to this mess?" cried Percy. "I know this is frustrating," said Wilbert, "but I believe we can put a stop to these reckless teens." "These teens seem to have a knack for getting away with their antics," sighed James. "Always staying one step ahead of us," grumbled Henry. "It feels like we're dealing with a lost cause," finished Gordon. Now Wilbert is an engine that doesn't give up so easily, and he firmly believes that with the right plan and teamwork, he can find a way to outsmart the mischievous teens. That evening, Wilbert was at Knapford Station talking with Oliver and Toad. "Things are bad," sighed Wilbert, "but I'm staying confident. Anyone who hurts my friends is a menace to society and—" Then Wilbert stopped. He noticed someone familiar on the station's platform. It looked like one of the teens. Wilbert smirked. He finally had a plan. Wilbert whispered to Oliver, who agreed. "You're so lucky, Wilbert," Oliver said loudly. "What time will you take the very important passengers to Ulvstead Castle?" 11 o'clock, Wilbert said loudly. The teen grinned deviously. "We'll give those passengers a surprise they'll never forget." And he ran off to tell his friends. "He took the bait," smiled Oliver. "What bait? And what important passengers?" Both engines looked, and there stood Sir Topham Hatt. "Let me explain, sir," said Wilbert. Wilbert told Sir Topham Hatt all about his plan. "I'll make arrangements immediately," grinned Sir Topham Hatt. "Do you think your plan will work, Mr. Wilbert?" asked Toad. "We won't know until we give it a shot," Wilbert replied. Wilbert enthusiastically laid out his strategy, detailing each step they would take to catch the troublesome teens. However, the other engines listened with skepticism, questioning whether his plan would actually work. The next morning, it was snowing once more, but Wilbert didn't care. His focus was solely on ending the chaos that the horrid teens had caused. Wilbert arrived at Knapford Station with his 2 red Stroudley coaches. "It's now or never," Wilbert said determinedly. The snow was falling heavily, but Wilbert was undeterred. His focus was solely on ending the mischief that the horrid teens had caused. He could see that he was going to pass the same field where he had been ambushed, and he could see that the teens were waiting for him. But there was something else he could see. On the tracks was a big snowdrift. I think those teens need a taste of their own medicine, thought Wilbert. The signal changed. Wilbert went faster and faster. "Wilbert!" cried his driver. "This isn't part of your plan!" "It is now!" replied Wilbert. "Here he comes!" shouted one of the teens. The teens started to throw snowballs at Wilbert, but missed. Wilbert went faster and faster, and then he hit the snowdrift with great force, causing the teens to get knocked over. Wilbert's driver applied the brakes, and Wilbert slowed to a stop. "Oh, now you're in for it!" shouted one of the teens. "Is he?" said a voice. The teens stopped. Wilbert's passengers turned out to be Policeman! Run for it, lads! But it was too late. The teens were apprehended. Rosie was passing by, and she cheered when she saw the teens were getting arrested. Well done, Wilbert! We have peace at last! The other engines were thrilled that the horrid teens were caught at last. Well done, Wilbert! Puffed Gordon. Brilliant work! Smiled James. Thanks to you, we can all have some peace again, beamed Henry. With the teens apprehended, the engines could finally resume their work in peace. 2 days later, Wilbert and Rosie were shunting trucks when... It's Thomas! Exclaimed Rosie. Thomas puffed in, looking so much better. Hello, Rosie. And hello, Wilbert. It's been a very long time, said Thomas. Sure has, smiled Wilbert. What did I miss while I was gone? Asked Thomas. Oh, you're in for quite a story, said Rosie. Wilbert and Rosie recounted the chaotic events that unfolded, detailing the antics of the unruly teenagers. Thomas listened intently, feeling a wave of relief as Wilbert described the decisive actions he had taken to prevent any further mischief. As the evening wore on, everyone knew it was time for Wilbert to return home. Come back and see us soon, said Thomas. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas. You as well, replied Wilbert. And you're all welcome on my railway too. Then he puffed away. When Christmas Day arrived, the engines on the island of Sodor and the Dean Forest Railway were filled with festive cheer. The engines celebrated Christmas with joy, spreading cheer across the island of Sodor and the Dean Forest Railway.